All right, today we are doing a tier list, and this is a tier list of all of the different preamps that I've used throughout my 20 years of working in audio. Let's jump into it. Now, you know me, I love a good preamp. Like, I still believe to date that the best first, major studio upgrade that you can really do is to upgrade your preamp. I will die on that hill. In fact, if you want more of a personal story as to why I believe that with my heart of hearts, I released a video a couple months ago called Stop Saying Gear Doesn't Matter. I know it's kind of a clickbaity title, but go watch that video. I share a story as to why I feel that way. And if you want to go argue with me in the comments, just do it over there. Or do it here too. That's totally fine. All right, before we jump into everything, let's define our terms. God tier, because... God tier. Right below that, we've got excellent choice, Pete. I don't know a Pete, so I chose that name. Then below that, we've got that'll do. Honestly, there's so many preamps that I feel like fall into that category. It's like they're not the most exciting thing that you can't wait to use again, but they'll work. That'll do. It's the right tool for the job, I guess. And then below that, we've got maybe my favorite name for a category. Do we have any other options? Which I will say there's going to be a few preamps that fall into this category, which is like, I can use it, it's fine, but do we have any other options? It's not my favorite. And then at the very bottom, I'm not sure if anything's actually going to fall into this category, but let's just stick with the interface preamp. I feel like that is almost insulting. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, Neve 1073 SPX. Excellent choice, Pete. Now, keep in mind, this is the AMS Neve 1073, and it's the SPX, which is the single channel with the EQ. I owned this for a little over a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I liked it. I think it sounds great. Why is it not in God tier? There's a few other 1073s that I actually like a little bit better, which I know might sound like blasphemy because this is the Neve 1073. Well, it kind of is a Neve 1073, and in some ways it's not really. It shares the name of the company, right? But it's not really the same as the vintage Neve 1073. I know this sounds super douchey, roll your eyes with me, but they do sound different, and I do have experience with the vintage one, so we're going to get into that in a little bit, but let's just keep moving on. Okay, real quick, I forgot to mention this in the video when I was actually recording it, of course, but I'm going to get all of the legacy stuff out of the way first. So the 1073s and 1073 clones that I've used, I'm going to do those first. The APIs and API clones, we're going to get that out of the way, and then we'll get to all the boutique stuff after that. So timestamps down below, just so you know. Warm audio. This is the WA73. Okay, so here's the deal. It's, in the grand scheme of things, it's in this category. That'll do. Because it'll work. It's fine, but compared to a lot of the other 1073s, do we have any other options? I did not like it. I owned this particular 1073 clone. I'm going to call it a clone. And I owned it for, 6 or 8 weeks. I sold it pretty quick because I just knew that it wasn't for me. It just, I don't know. There was not a whole lot that I tracked through it that I really enjoyed, especially because at that time I had a few other 1073 options, and it just wasn't for me. So... And I actually called it a couple of years ago. I said when Warm Audio first came out with these things, I was like, they're going to sell a ton of these units because it's affordable and it looks exactly like a Neve, right? But in a couple of years, after I heard it myself, and I was like, in a couple of years, I think we're going to start seeing these things flood the used market, which is exactly what we're seeing now. A lot of people that own these end up selling them. Take that for what it's worth. So for me, again, that'll do. It'll do. It's fine. I liked it on bass DI. It does have a decent character for bass DI. Kick drum, it was okay. But I really didn't like it on vocals or guitar amps or anything like that. So it didn't really work for me too well. All right, Great River. This is a Neve flavor of a preamp. I would say it's like Neve inspired, really. I have one. They're great. Okay. I'm going to put it in excellent choice, Pete. I really do. I think they're great. I really do like them. I would say they are cleaner than a typical 1073 is. Like a 1073 is known for its distortion and harmonic content and saturation, and there's just some magic when you crank those suckers up and they get thick and just beautiful. Listen to the words I'm using. And the Great River is a little bit more of like a hi-fi version of that. You can still crank it up a little bit. You can get it to sound thick, but generally speaking, it's a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit more of a polished version of a 1073. But because of that, it makes it a little bit more versatile than a lot of the other 1073 copies. Great. I've never put the Great River on anything and disliked it. It sounds great. All right, BAE. Straight to God tier. Like, oh God, it's so good. It's crazy. And yes, it is that good. I'm being totally honest with you. The BAE stuff is so good. BAE started as Brent Averill Enterprises, I think, or maybe engineering. Anyways, they took like old Neve modules, like Neve 1272 modules, and they would take them and rack them up so that producers would have access to vintage Neve console sound in a modern rack that you could use with any console. And so it was like kind of your outboard Neve preamp type of thing. And what he learned from re-racking all of those Neve preamps, he just took a lot of that knowledge and put it into his own preamp. And so that's what started BAE. And this is, you know, the BAE DMP. This is the rack-mounted BAE 1073. This is the 500 series. And it's one of the only 500 series 1073s that I actually really like. They're just good. They have the character. They nailed the saturation, 10 out of 10. They nailed that kind of like grain and grit that happens in the mid-range. I love it so much. It does kind of help to shave off the harshness on the top end. It gives you everything that you look for out of a 1073. It's just the best. It sounds so good. I love the BAE 1073s. In my mind, there's like BAE and then there's everything else for like the copies. So, all right, moving on. Vintech. Vintech had a moment where everybody was talking about them. I'm going to put in an excellent choice. In the 2010s, Vintech really came out with these and they were really popular at the time, right? And a lot of people talked about them, and the hype was there, and the hype kind of fell off a cliff, and I don't really know why. They still, to this day, are some of my favorite 1073 style preamps. They sound really, really good. I love the Vintech audio stuff. Excellent choice. I will put it head and shoulders above a lot of the other 1073s. All right, moving on. Vintage Neve 1073s. I mean, God tier. It's, of course, this is the OG. This is the original, the 1073 that came out of like the consoles and stuff. Like, I do have experience working on like a vintage Neve console. I do have experience with the vintage Neve preamps that have been re-racked. They do just sound glorious. They do. I mean, honestly, if you've got access to multiple channels of vintage 1073, you have no excuse. It is going to sound glorious, or you are a terrible engineer. They just sound good. Those are preamps that kind of exist in this level of, you know, at a certain point, like you plug something into a 1073 and you're like, it's not going to sound bad. This will sound as good as it maybe can. It sounds great on drums, great on guitars, great on vocals. It's just such a great sounding preamp. And unfortunately, they also cost so much money. And it's just unrealistic for 99% of us. All right, God tier. Moving on. Neve 1073 LB. Oh, I can't. I know it's surprising. This is again the AMS Neve. And it's the 500 series version of the Neve 1073 that Neve makes, the AMS Neve. There's been a few times that I've used it, and every time that I've reached for it and tried it, I've just been like, that's not it, and then just moved on and patched in something else. It's fine. I like the bottom end on it. I think it does actually sound really good now that I say that on like DI for like keys and like synths and keyboards and stuff. I think it's got a good full frequency range for that, but it doesn't do the 1073 thing as well. I have actually hypothesized, I've talked to like electrical engineers and like the audio electrical engineers about this, and I'm not sure why, but 500 series 1073s have always left me wanting something more. And I don't know why. And I've hypothesized that it's about the power supply, and I've been told that's probably not it. And I don't know, but it could just be that it's really hard to get that design of a preamp shoved into that small of a footprint. I really don't know, but every one of the 500 series 1073s I've tried have left me wanting more outside of the BAE. I don't know why, it just sounds really good. All right, moving on. This is the Golden Age project, and I think this picture is of a Mark IV. In full disclaimer, I've only ever used the Mark I of this preamp. This is the Golden Age project pre-73, and again, pretend like it's the Mark I. Do we have any other options? I just didn't like it that much. It to me sounded thin. It lacked that body. It did have a transformer character, but it just didn't sound big. It didn't have the richness or the fullness that I really want to get out of the 1073. It just left me wanting more. So, do we have any other options? Moving on. All right, Black Lion Audio B173. Now, if you work at Black Lion Audio, I need you to turn your head and plug your ears for just a second, and I'll let you know when it's safe again. Because I do love a lot of what Black Lion Audio does, but this particular unit, I'm going to put it right there. Do we have any other options? Truth be told, I will put it just a touch over the Golden Age project. I think the Golden Age project for me is just the floor of the 1073. I'll still take it over an interface preamp, but it's not my preference. And same thing with the Black Lion. Same complaints. It just lacked the body, the fullness. It had some of the character, and I think I liked the character more on the Black Lion Audio than on the Golden Age. But it didn't give me what I wanted. I tried the Mark I. I owned the Mark I. I owned the Mark II. I wanted to like it so much because I like so much of what else they do, but I did not like that particular model. So do we have any other options? All right, moving on. And Heritage Audio. This is the HA73 Junior. Full disclosure here, that'll do. I have only used the Mark I. I have not used the Mark II on these. They're good. They sound good. But again, I would put it right there at like the warm audio, maybe a little above the warm audio level. Yeah, I would say comparing to other 1073s, like the warm audio, I would put the Neve 1073 LB and the Heritage Audio neck and neck, truthfully. And I would put them just above the warm audio. So if there is an in-between category, that is where this Heritage Audio lives, and that's also where the Neve 1073 LB lives, is like that in-between. Good, but not phenomenal, you know? So, AML 1073. This is the EZ 1073. These are like kit builds. I think you can buy these as complete builds every now and then, or there are people that will build one for you and then ship it to you. I think that's the way that I got mine. Somebody built one and shipped it to me. I had a pair of these. I liked them. I'm going to put it right there with the other 500 series 1073s. I would put them all in that same category, just above the warm audio, not as good as the Vintech or the AMS Neve or the Great River. They're great, but it just kind of lacks that something. There's some oomph that I'm missing. And how do you define oomph? Like, I can't give you a frequency spectrum. I can't give you a number. I can't give you like a decibel measurement. Like, I can't really tell you why, but it just doesn't sound as big or as full, and it doesn't give me as much of the character that I look for out of the 1073 in the 500 series. Again, outside of the BAE, which does fantastic. I don't know why. I'm really curious to know what black magic is in the BAE. All right, so that's going to do it for the 1073. So have a good look here. If you are thinking about a 1073, this is where the cards fall, if you ask me. I am curious to know what everybody else's thoughts are on this particular ranking of just the 1073s. Interesting. Okay, moving on. API style preamps. So again, another legacy. Oh wait, we got one more 1073, and it's the Heritage Audio. It's going to go in that same category. Again, I think that I would put it above the Warm Audio. I don't like the Warm Audio as much as the Heritage Audio. The Heritage Audio sounds a little bit tighter on the low end and fuller on the low end. It's got a bigger sound, and I like the character of the preamps a little bit more than the Warm Audio. Everybody thinks that I'm just like, a hater of Warm Audio, but look at where the Warm Audio is. It's in the same category. But again, I would say these four live in that in-between territory. The Heritage Audio stuff and all that. And then the Warm Audio is just like right below all those guys. All right, so that's going to do it for all the 1073s, unless I missed one. No, it looks like that's it. All right, so let's go to the API style preamps now. So the classic, and I'm going to lump together like the API 312, the 512C, and the 512V, all those guys. God tier. And I mean, that should not surprise anyone, I would hope. I mean, API is a classic. They are a legacy preamp. They are a legacy brand. Everybody chases after certain sounds in the audio world, and API is one of those. They are incredible. They sound so good. I would say my favorite of all the API preamps is probably the 512V, because you do have the option to like drive and saturate and kind of get a little bit more character out of the transformer with those, which makes it a little bit more versatile. But I mean, they all sound really good. So God tier. Come on. All right, CAPI. God tier again. That may surprise some people because that is a clone, but they do a great job. And I think the picture I have of the CAPI is the VP28 that I have on that picture, but like I've used the VP28, the VP26, I've used the CAPI VP312. I've owned all of those models that I just listed off, and they are all like 9.75 out of 10. Like, I love the API sound. It's open, it's punchy, it's got that hi-fi sheen, and API does that so well, and CAPI nails it. Absolutely nails it. And I really like the character that they get. And then they also have the added benefit of that extra little knob down there at the bottom. That's an output trim. So you can actually treat that like your fader. And so you can drive the preamp a little bit more. Again, giving you more character. So fantastic. Real quick before we move on. So number one, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, you absolutely should, to be honest. There's a lot of really cool stuff that's coming up. For example, I am currently in the process of building up a 500 series channel strip, and I've got a couple options. We're going to go through that together. Number two, I've got this session that I recorded in Philadelphia, and I filmed a bunch of behind the scenes footage, and I'm going to do a total breakdown of like gear used, microphone techniques, the mentality and the reasons behind making some of the choices that we did. So subscribe to this channel so you don't miss that. Number two, if you are interested in any of the preamps that I am mentioning, I will put links to them down below in the description. If you decide to purchase using those links, it gives me a kickback. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am for every single one of you that clicks on those links. It means the world. So with that being said, let's just get right back to it. All right, Black Lion Audio B12A. This is another one that lives kind of in between. I'm going to put it, because I know some other preamps that are going to be coming up, I'm going to put that one in That'll Do. I do like it. I used the one that I owned. I had the Mark II, which is the one that's pictured there, and also the Mark III. I had that one for a while. I used it on snare a lot. I used it a lot on vocals, a lot on guitars, a lot on acoustic guitars. Very versatile, very open top end. It's got that hi-fi sheen. It's got that sound. And it sounds nice and big, which I always like. So fantastic. Man, maybe it is excellent choice. I'm going to put it right there. It's in that in-between category. Honestly, it really is. There's like those 5 right in a row are all in that in-between category. They're good. Warm Audio WA12. It just lives right next door. I have A-B'd the Black Lion Audio and the Warm Audio version of this preamp. They're basically the same design, and it is really hard to tell the difference. The only major difference between the two that I was able to pick up on is the Warm Audio does have a slightly warmer tone to it. I mean, fits the name, I guess. However, they can sometimes sound a little bit woolly. And so that's kind of a drawback. I have not had the chance to like record a whole bunch through that one preamp like I have with the Black Lion. Like with the Black Lion Audio, you can stack up tracks all day with that thing, and it sounds great. You have no problem stacking tracks. You can stack them 40, 50 tracks. You're going to be fine. With the Warm Audio, once you start stacking up tracks a lot, it's going to start sounding woolly. I've only had a chance to stack up like 6 or so tracks, but I did notice a lot of that like 200 to 700 range will be a little bit woolly. And so keep that in mind, because it starts to sound like they've got like just like cotton or something in their mouth whenever they're singing. Like something's just obstructing that top end from opening up on the Warm Audio. So the Black Lion may be slightly above the Warm Audio, but really they're neck and neck. All right, this is a DI box. Why is it that you've got it in the preamp category? Honestly, you should listen to these things, because if you take a listen to that DI box, you will come to the conclusion that it's actually, yeah, kind of a preamp. It just doesn't offer like phantom power. In the session I had last week in Philadelphia, we used this exact DI box on the bass. I've used this DI box in many different scenarios, in many different sessions. It is one of the greatest sounding DI boxes that have ever been made, but it has such a high output that I'm actually going to just consider it a tube preamp that is meant for line or taking in like instrument input. Like it really does have that much gain to it. I remember actually using it at a studio in Texas, and the bass that the guy was using was one of those Ernie Ball Stingrays, and he which have a high output, and he plugged it into that red DI box. And when I patched that into the console, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like I've got the preamp all the way down, and I'm getting level to a point of where I might have to hit the pad. So it comes in at mic level. It comes in at line level practically. Excellent choice. Those things sound so good. They're really awesome. All right, Black Lion Audio Auteur. These things are cool. I'm going to put it in That'll Do. Honestly, one of the best inexpensive preamps, if you ask me. Like, you can pick these things up really cheap. Like, I'm not sure what they cost new for like that version, the desktop version. But you can get like the 2-channel version or the 4-channel version, and you're ended up paying only like $150 per channel or something like that. Like, it's really pretty inexpensive. The used market, these things pop up all the time too, and there's not a huge difference between all the different like generations of the Auteur, from what my ears tell me anyways. They sound great. They do give you, it's a slightly cleaner preamp, but it does give you a nice beefy, like mid-range sound. It sounds great. If you do stack up a lot of tracks through the Auteur, it will start to get maybe a little bit crowded in the mid-range. Nothing that you couldn't work with in post-production, but just something to keep in mind. They sound great, really incredibly fast transient response, really good preamps. I know a guy who does a lot of remote sessions. Like, people send him their song and he does the drums for that and sends out the multi-tracks. He has the 2-channel version of the Auteur and it just lives on his snare drum because he loves how that sounds on snare drum. Great preamps. I really like them. All right, moving on. Chandler Germanium preamp, straight to God tier. These things are cool. They are colorful preamps. So keep that in mind. Like, if you are someone who does not want to have any sort of distortion or artifacts or any sort of character in your preamp, this is not your preamp. However, if you do like that vibey, saucy kind of sound, man, these things are color boxes. And the 2 knobs that you've got there, the one on top is like gain, and the one on bottom is called feedback. And it's this push and pull where, like, if you, because the feedback, what it does is it actually sends some of the output of the signal right back into the input stage of that preamp. So you can kind of fine tune. You can either do lower gain, higher feedback, or higher gain, lower feedback, or kind of find that balance in between. And you just dial in the amount of saturation and character and color that you want. They're really cool. Love that thing on bass DI. Love that thing on vocals. Love that thing on guitar amp, drums. I mean, it sounds good on so many different things. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of with those preamps is acoustic guitar. It can get a little bit too much for acoustic guitar, but otherwise it sounds pretty good. Maybe piano too. I probably wouldn't gravitate towards that, but for so much other stuff, if you're looking for a colorful preamp, it does that sound so well. All right, the Chandler, not the Germanium, the TG2, straight into God tier as well. Now, here's the deal with the TG2. If you look at the bottom of that preamp, it actually has the Abbey Road logo on it. And the reason why is because the guy that designed these preamps actually worked with Abbey Road Studios in this partnership where they developed a preamp that emulated the sound of the console in Abbey Road Studios, like that famous console that gives you the sound of the 60s and 70s. And the TG2 is like one of my all-time favorite sounding preamps. I think it sounds so good. I've got my eye on one right now, and I'm this close to pulling the trigger. It's, if you find one for a good price, you will not be dissatisfied. Those things sound so insanely good, especially if you get like a good tube mic into that preamp. It's magic. It's glorious. All right, moving on. A-Designs. Now, this is all the 500 series of A-Designs stuff. Straight to God tier as well. A-Designs is some of my favorite stuff. I love A-Designs. I think they make really incredible preamps and really incredible gear just across the board, honestly. The 500 series, so the P1, the one that's all the way over here on the left, you are actually hearing my voice through my A-Designs P1 that I've got in my 500 series rack here. I love these things. So incredibly versatile, really good saturation on the lows and the low mids, and it's got this like thickness and it's like a syrupy sweetness to it. I love the sound of the P1. The other colors, they just give you different colors, different like flavors of preamp. It's like you're a chef and you have slightly different ingredients for different things. Same kind of deal with this preamp. So the EM Blue, I owned the EM Blue and I miss it so much. I sold it and I regret it. It's got the same color and flavor as the P1, but it's got a more open top end. And I think the reason why is because it's got, I think, either a steel transformer, maybe nickel. I don't remember specifically, so forgive me for that. But a little bit more open on the top end, all the same syrupy sweetness and saturation. And I've used the red and gold as well. And I've used the silver once before, but I couldn't tell you the subtle differences between like the silver and some of the other ones. But I remember the red and gold I loved on vocals, and the EM blue I loved on so much instrumentation. And the P1 is the do everything preamp to me. So I love those preamps. They are so good. God tier. All right, the Focusrite ISA. Oh man, this is another one of those that's slightly misunderstood. I'm gonna put it in that'll do. Now, this one's got a story to it as well. So Rupert Neve, the same Rupert Neve that designed the Neve 1073, designed this preamp, which surprises so many people when I tell them that. So before Focusrite was synonymous with your uncle's failed music career, it was known for being the manufacturer of some really top shelf analog outboard gear and equipment. And Rupert Neve got together with George Martin, the guy that produced the Beatles, you know, that guy, and designed the ISA, the input signal amplifier, for him. And he wanted to create the most musical sounding preamp that he possibly could. So this thing is transformer balanced. It's made with Lundall transformers. It's a great preamp. And that particular model, the ISA One, actually comes with a lot of bells and whistles that are really, really useful. It's got a headphone amp built in. It's got a DI box, so you can use that as a DI box. You can use it as a microphone preamp. It sounds great. It's a little bit cleaner than a lot of other 1073s and things like that, but it's good. It still sounds good. It still gives you transformer character, but I wouldn't say that it's a super saturated sound, but I wouldn't say it's a super clean sound either. It's kind of like this hi-fi kind of sound. Really good on a lot of stuff. I've never used it on anything and been disappointed, but it's never the preamp that I use and I'm like, oh, hell yeah, that's the greatest sound I've ever heard. You know, it's like, it's awesome, but there's some other flavors that I prefer, you know, that kind of thing. But it sounds good. That'll do. It'll do. All right, Grace Design. This is the M501 that I've got pictured here, but it's the M series preamp. My spec sheet guys. Okay, excellent choice. The reason why I called out my spec sheet guys is there are so many people that exist in the audio YouTube community, really, that overvalue the spec sheets. Respectfully, you guys drive me nuts sometimes. And the reason why is because anytime I talk about a preamp, they're going to bring up the specs about that preamp. And they're going to be like, well, scientifically, it measures at this, you know, self-noise level, and this is the amount of dB of gain it has, and therefore there are better preamps out there. And it's like, oh my God, dude, listen to the preamp, because a spec sheet cannot give you the sound of a preamp, because all of those specs, although are useful and they have their place, they are not what makes the sound of a preamp. Here's the thing about the Grace Design preamps. They are crystal clear. They have very low noise. They give you clean gain. They give you no color. And for some people, that is super boring. Like, I'll be totally honest. If you are going for voiceover, this may be a really good preamp for you. Because for voiceover, you don't want a lot of color or saturation or character, right? That can be distracting. You want it to sound like the human voice. And then there are other situations. If you are a musician, say you're a vocalist and you really like to get like intense, you sing with an emotional intensity, you're probably gonna want to get a different preamp. Like the Grace Design is a great preamp for certain jobs, but it is the Disney preamp. It is the preamp that Disney uses on their, you know, animated musical movies and their voiceover and stuff like that. So if you've listened to like the Frozen soundtrack. That's the sound of the Grace design. If that's what you're going for, it does a great job at that, which is why I'm putting it an excellent choice, because it's a tool designed for a certain job. If you're doing classical recordings, it's great. If you're doing voiceover, it's great. If you're doing super clean recordings, it's great. If you are looking for color or character, or you like the sound of a 1073, you're going to listen to this and be like, I mean, it sounds a little better than my interface. Like, that's maybe how you'll feel. I think they sound great. I think they sound well above the quality of an interface preamp, but I still think it's not character. It is clean. So if you're going for clean, this is great. But if you're not going for clean, avoid this particular preamp. All right, let's move on. Rupert Neve Designs 511. This is the Portico stuff. A lot of people think it's going to go right there. It's not. That'll do. Here's the thing. I owned the 511, and similar to the WA73, I just didn't get along with it. The silk that comes in these things, there's a sweet spot between like 60% and 75%. And if the A Designs preamps are preamps that give you a syrupy like sweetness, the Rupert Neve Designs gives you a refined sugar sweetness, like a white sugar. Like a little bit sounds great, but too much is just far too much. So because of that, I'm going to put it in That'll Do. The top end of this preamp I never got along with. It got a little spiky at times. And like, I didn't really prefer it on a vocal. I didn't really prefer it on guitars. I didn't really prefer it on drums. I didn't really prefer it on voiceover. It only really sounded great on like a chimey, bright, sparkly acoustic guitar. That's when I really liked it. But for just about everything else, I did not really go for it too much. Okay. Rupert Neve Designs the Newton channel. I'm going to go an excellent choice. It's similar to the Rupert Neve 511. There's something about the Rupert Neve Design stuff, especially the Portico stuff, where it's just, again, if the A Designs is a syrup sweetness, the Rupert Neve Designs is a sugar sweetness, like refined sugar. They can be too much sometimes. The Newton channel sounds really good. It's a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit more transparent than some other preamps, but it does have the silk options, which gives you character and vibe and feel. And so for that reason, I'm inching it up a category. I still think it sounds good. They're expensive, but they sound good. Universal Audio 610. There are so many people that swear by this thing. I am like in between excellent choice and That'll Do. I'm going to go with That'll Do. Reason being, I think the 610 does what it does well, but I don't love that preamp on a lot of stuff. If it had more versatility, I'd give it a better ranking. I used it actually last weekend. At the session that I had in Philadelphia. Subscribe so you don't miss that big breakdown video. But we were recording the guitars, and one of the guitar amps was the AC30, and we used an SM57 and then a ribbon mic. And on the SM57 channel, like the thing about an AC30 is they can be really like bitey and like a little bit sharp on the ears. And so because when like we were listening to the AC30 through the monitors, and like we took a listen to it, and immediately I was like, we got to do something to tame like the bite and the sharpness of that AC30. And so we patched in the 610, and it does that really well. If you have an overly bright or bitey source or something that when you're listening to it, it just sounds almost like an ice pick in your ears, if you patch it into the 610, it can help to smooth that out quite a bit. And sure enough, it practically solved that problem. And made that way easier to work with in post. So it does what it does really well, but it's not the preamp that I gravitate towards unless I am like on a recovery mission, that kind of thing. So they're good. They don't sound bad. But the other thing is too, is if you start recording a whole bunch of stuff through the 610, it starts to sound a little thick. So I am not a huge 610 guy. They sound great, but again, you know, with footnotes. A Designs Pacifica, right up there, God tier. Another one of my all-time favorite preamps. I think that the Pacifica sounds great on literally everything. I have never used the Pacifica on anything and not been really impressed with how it sounds. It is the preamp that I will gravitate towards if I am just not sure what I want to put that on. Like if I've got a vocalist and I'm like, oh yeah, 1073, like let's go for it, then that's what I'm going to go for. But if I've got like a vocalist and the 1073 isn't working, there's like a 99% chance that the Pacifica or the P1 will work really well. These preamps were designed after the old Quad 8 consoles. They just sound so good. Highly recommended. A Designs Pacifica, you cannot go wrong. They sound great on everything. I love it on drum overheads, love it on acoustic guitar, love it on piano, love it on vocals, love it on electric guitar. I have never used it and thought to myself, oh, another preamp would sound better. Every time I use it, it sounds good. And yes, it is that good. All right, moving on. Daking. I can't ever remember the right way to pronounce it. And you know me, I always mispronounce these companies. But the Mic Pre 1. Excellent choice, Pete. I think that these preamps really have their place. They lean towards an API sound, but I wouldn't really say it's API. They sound great. They sound really good. I like them a lot on electric guitar. It sounds great on a vocal. It sounds great on acoustic guitar. It sounds great on piano. It sounds great on a lot of stuff. Are there other preamps that I like a little better? Sure, but these are excellent. They sound big. They sound saturated. It's a good sounding preamp. I really do like those a lot. All right, down to the last two. SSL. This is the 6 channel. A lot of people are thinking this goes right up here. For me, do we have any other options? Like, I mean, here's the deal. On SSL preamps, I generally feel this way. And a lot of people, this is why, like, the old adage of, like, track on a Neve, mix on an SSL, like, a lot of people feel this way. Like, guys that have big SSL boards in their studio typically have a whole bunch of outboard preamps that they can patch in because they generally don't love the sound of SSL preamps. Generally speaking, like from what I've seen anyways. They'll have like 8 channels of API, 8 channels of Neve, you know, like that kind of thing. And so SSL preamps, they have really good transient response, I will say that. And generally they sound fine, but there's nothing about them that just screams like, oh, this is an excellent preamp. I would literally take any of these preamps that's above the SSL over the SSL. With that being said, I love SSL stuff. I love SSL EQs. I love SSL, like the dynamics that comes on SSL boards. Like, I love SSL stuff. And if you run a mix through an SSL board, it has this energy and this punch and this character that is so good. But they're mic pre's. I'm just super lukewarm on and just not excited about. So, do we have any other options? All right, UA710. So it's different from the 610. And I've used this in one of my videos. Excellent choice, Pete. The 710 is interesting. It's like a hybrid design, and it's one of the first that I've ever seen that's done this. And if you turn, there's this knob in the middle, it's called trans tube. And if you turn it all the way to the left, it's 100% transistor. So it's got crispy top end, faster transients, that whole thing. And then if you turn that knob all the way to the right, it goes 100% tube. So it's warmer. It's a little gushier. It's got the tube sound. It's got the saturation. It's got that hair on it, right? But the magic of that preamp is when you take that trans tube knob and you start to move it around somewhere in between, like usually like 10 and 2, somewhere in there, there's this spot where harmonics just open up and bloom, and it just makes everything sound so good. And so it's what I just call the sweet spot of the trans tube knob. To date, might be my favorite guitar amp mic preamp. It's so good. It's ridiculous on that. Bass DI, it does fantastic. Piano, it does fantastic. It's like it's made for stringed instruments. It sounds so good for a lot of that. The only thing that I don't love through the 710, excuse me, I've been talking for forever now, is I'm not a huge fan of vocals through the 710. If it was better, and again, this is personal taste, but if it was better for vocals, I would put it up here in God tier. But because it's not a go-to for a vocal, and it's just really good for all this other stuff, I'm going to call it excellent choice. It doesn't quite have the versatility, and it also suffers from the same thing that the 610 suffers from, which is if you start stacking up a bunch of tracks that are recorded through that preamp, and trust me, I know, I've done it because it was the first outboard preamp I ever bought. And I liked it so much, I got another one. I had a pair of them. And so I tracked everything through those preamps. And when that happens, it starts to sound a little bit convoluted, a little bit thick if you're leaning on the tube side, which I always did. But great preamp otherwise. Excellent preamp. I love that one. All right, let's take a look at this list. See if I'm going to make any different or any little changes here. Let's see. I mean, honestly, I feel pretty good about everything on this list. Like, yeah, we've got BAE, Neve, API, all of those freaking phenomenal sounding preamps. And then all these guys are also really good and they have their place. Yeah, I'm good with this. I'm locking this one in. So here's the tier list of every preamp that I have used extensively or owned throughout my 20 years of doing this audio thing. So I hope you guys got something out of this. Listen, if you are interested in any of these preamps, of course, I'm going to put the links to every single preamp down in the description below if I can find it. There's a chance that I may not be able to find it, and in those cases, you may have to, search for reverb or something like that. And then obviously, like a vintage Neve, I'm not going to be able to find that. They don't make them anymore. But for everything else, links are in description. If you liked this video, please like this video. I know it's a crazy thought. And subscribe if you have not subscribed to this channel. I've got a lot of really cool stuff that's going to be coming up. So, all right, I'll see you guys in the next one.